So the Brooklyn Nets continue to make moves to try to bolster their chances of making the NBA Finals. Look, their postseason run was cut short due to injuries up top, but I love what the Brooklyn Nets are doing this offseason. They're strengthening their bottom, all right? They're creating some depth on that roster. We'll get into a couple of other moves in a second here, but let's start with the move that I think is the biggest of the moves, and that's trading that contract of Deandre Jordan. The Nets were able to get rid of that bad boy and ship it off to Detroit. Look, this trade won't get talked about in anybody's top 5 trades of the offseason, but I promise you it's a major one. Essentially, the Nets are trading Deandre about $5.78 million in cash, about 4 picks as well, some second-round picks, to Detroit. And essentially what the Pistons are giving him back is a player that I actually really like a lot. And Sekou Doumbouya, he can ball. Anybody that's seen Sekou play in Detroit, I know they don't get a lot of TV time, but he can ball. But more importantly, the Nets are able to clear up some cap space. If you remember correctly, Deandre was a guy that was brought over when KD and Kyrie came to Brooklyn in free agency. Deandre came as well. And, you know, look, I thought Deandre's job was quite simple. Help these stars get acclimated to Brooklyn. I think if you asked or polled the NBA players, name the 10 coolest guys in the NBA, 10 guys that get along with pretty much everybody, Deandre Jordan would probably be on that list. He's just a guy that's cool with a lot of NBA players. And I'm just reading the room here. It looks like KD and Kyrie have gotten acclimated and gelled with each other, and they brought in another one of their friends in Harden. And Blake Griffin's a guy that's fit in well, and Bruce Brown as well. It looks like the Nets are like, I think we're good enough, Deandre. We don't need you anymore. We got better options at big. And they got rid of him. Deandre was a guy that struggled to find minutes in the postseason. He can't shoot. And what I've learned about watching Brooklyn is they like these pick-and-pop guys more than they do just lobbing it up to the rim. They have a guy for that. Nicholas Claxton is the guy for that, right? Like, if they're going to do the lob to the rims, I believe the Nets think Nicholas Claxton is a better fit for that than Deandre Jordan. But Nicholas Claxton has the potential to pop out a little more than Deandre can, and I think he's a better free throw shooter than Deandre. So the Nets are like, we got everything we need in Deandre and Claxton with a lot less mileage on the body. And we also like doing pick and pops with guys like Blake Griffin a lot more anyway, right? So they got rid of Deandre. That was the first big move. That comes just 48 hours after the Nets made another move that I thought was pretty interesting. Paul Milsap chose Brooklyn in free agency. That's a big deal to me. Milsap can bang. You know, he's a guy that's been around the association. He was in Denver the last few years, but he's moving on now and joining the Nets on a 1-year deal. And again, the Nets were not done. They traded Deandre Jordan to bring in Millsap, but also to also bring in this guy who retired in the season, and this left a bad taste in my mouth. Lamarcus Aldridge had that heart condition. He was forced to retire. It looks like he's been cleared through whatever medical procedures that need to happen and whatever doctors and physicians that needed to clear him. He's making a return to the NBA next year, and I like that a lot. I love that. I hated how that story ended, and I just would have been so messed up inside had the Nets won a championship and Lamarcus wasn't able to celebrate that moment. So look, I'm rooting for my Lakers clearly, but if the Nets are able to get over the hump, it is a feel-good story in it. Lamarcus thought his career was over. This dude's an all-star in his best of days, but a guy that can still do damage, pick and pop. And now I'm looking at that front court in Brooklyn, and it's not too bad, man. I'm looking at some of these guys, and I'm thinking, hey, between Blake Griffin, between Lamarcus Aldridge and Paul Millsap, and also Nicholas Claxton is still around, you got 4 bodies that you could throw at Giannis. Most importantly, Kevin Durant doesn't have to guard Giannis at any point in a basketball game with those bodies. Lamarcus Aldridge can bang. Like, is he the best defender in the world? No, but he's got 6 fouls. He can bang and he can pick and pop. Millsap can bang. Again, is Milsap going to stop Giannis Antetokounmpo by himself? Because that's what these moves are about. It's about stopping Giannis. No, he's not going to stop him by himself, but again, he's got 6 fouls, and he can bang. And you'll want even less production from Millsap than you would Lamarcus in the postseason. I think these are really good moves. Nicholas Claxton, I love where he's going. If you're a Brooklyn Nets fan today, you like that team a little better than you did yesterday. They brought in bodies, to me, specifically for Giannis. They saw what Blake Griffin was able to do, or rather I say what he was unable to do against Giannis, and they're like, hey, we like Blake. We brought Blake back. But he ain't got what it takes to lock down Giannis. In the postseason, we need taller guys, Lamarcus Aldridge, guys with some strength on them, Paul Millsap, And I think that's the direction Brooklyn's going. And I really believe the last week of the Nets has been about Giannis Antetokounmpo. And last piece I want to add to this puzzle real quick. We're going to talk about the Nets more when I do my breakdown of their offseason in a couple weeks here. But I do want to say this. You know, Kevin Durant, who's the star of that Brooklyn Nets team, he's their best player. He has now entered that rare space. And I want to, obviously, Kyrie and James Harden are big, important pieces to this. But KD's in a very rare space that I have not seen too many players get in the last decade. And you want me to be real with you? Kobe was never able to get into this space after Shaq left. And be clear, there was some great Laker teams, like with the Pau Gasol, obviously Lamar Odom and Andrew Bynum when he was at his peak. Like, those were really good Laker teams, borderline great Laker teams. But the Lakers had a lot of young guys on those teams, the Sasha Vujicic of the world, the Jordan Farmars of the world. Shannon Brown was around in some of that as well. Trevor Ariza, young in his career. They didn't go get the top-tier free agents on the market. I know it was a different era then. Yeah, they got Ron Artest, but other than that, they were not able to clean house in free agency like the Lakers and Nets are doing. Again, big markets in Los Angeles and Brooklyn. I'm watching KD here, and he just recently re-signed. And a lot of people were like, yo, why would he do that right now? He could be a free agent next year, and if he wants to stay in Brooklyn, great. But if he wanted to do something else, he could do that as well if he was a free agent. But he gave up those rights because he's comfortable in Brooklyn. And this is why he's comfortable in Brooklyn, I'm sure one of the reasons. Guys are flooding to him. Like, LeBron is solidified, but also KD is solidified. Guys know what they're getting year in, year out from KD. Just like they do LeBron. And Giannis will be that one day. I don't think it'll be in Milwaukee, but he will be there one day if he decides to leave that market, right? Like, Kawhi ain't there. Kawhi's not that guy. And I'd argue Steph Curry, as great as he is, they don't get the free agents like the Lakers and Nets have been able to do this offseason. Everybody wants to be in Los Angeles next to LeBron or in Brooklyn next to KD right now. That is a big thing that KD's got on him. Not only is he on the team that people want to go to, people will go to Brooklyn. They'll live in New York. He's the player that guys want to play with. And you rarely see that. I don't think Steph's in that space right now. Like, Steph's gotten some free agents, but not like how the Lakers and Nets were able to clean the house this offseason. Kawhi's not there despite him being in Los Angeles. Like, this is a rare space that KD is entered in right now. And maybe that's part of the reason why he was so willing to say, I'm good. Where am I going to get this at? I like what I got in Brooklyn right now. Let me go ahead and sign up for a few more years. The Brooklyn Nets are moving, and I believe a lot of their moves over the last week was to go and combat that Greek freak in Milwaukee. Like, anybody saying the Nets moves were about the Lakers today, I think they're wrong. And you got to get to the finals first. Nothing what the Nets did in the last week was about the Lakers. Like, they're going to beat the Lakers up top if they're going to beat if the Nets are going to beat the Lakers, they're going to break down Russell Westbrook and try to break Anthony Davis in half. Like, that's how you're going to beat the Lakers, right? That's at the top. That's the Hardens, the Kyries, the KDs of the world, right? What the Nets did was try to build a wall against Giannis with these moves this week.